Okay, today is 9.7 day 3, and it's mostly review, which is nice. So this one we started by factoring it, and after we had the 2 factored out, that x plus 4 canceled on the top and the bottom, and that made a whole. So when I graph it, I just have the y equals 2 left after the top and bottom canceled, and y equals 2 is this line right here. So the whole, which comes from this, -4 is the thing that creates it, because -4 makes the thing equal 0. That's the root versus the factor. So -4 would be right there, and you have just a little tiny spot there. There is nothing on the graph. Raise your hand if you had that right. Okay, good. Now, what does that really mean, this whole thing? If I put in a -4 back in the original, let's see what happens. It gets to be -8 plus 8, which is 0, over -4 is 0. 0 over 0, that doesn't even exist. That's the point. That it crashed the function. They can't exist at that spot. All right, so there's an empty spot right there. Is that different than an asymptote? Yeah, totally. The asymptotes are like lines that are dotted lines, and you get closer and closer and never touch them. Okay, that's a totally different concept. All right, let's look at problem 2 then to talk about that. This one has an asymptote instead of a whole. Please graph this one. And then answer the 4 questions about it. What's its domain? You remember you start with all reals and x cannot be whatever. It is a bob. Very good. And hopefully you don't think bobs are automatically 0, because they're not. Bob's an outsider. Yes. All right. You work on that. I'll come around and check and see how you're doing. If you need help, raise your hand. Okay, there's a fair number of people that weren't sure where to start, and I think it's just because you forgot what the parent looks like. The parent is 1 over x. So this is just one that's been moved to the right 3 and up 2. And the parent would look like this. So this is not the right answer, but it's the parent's graph. Now we move it somewhere else. Then, again, answer the 4 questions after that. I'm going to pause again and give you some more time to make that look good. All right, we're back. And it has been moved 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3 to the right, and it's been moved up 2. 1, 2 up, 1, 2 up. Okay, and then there's asymptotes in there, right there and right there. Do you have to have the asymptotes? Yes, the asymptotes are necessary on this graph. All right, last part. Fill in the 4 questions. Domain, all reals, big R, except x cannot be what? 3. And in this case, that creates a whole or an asymptote. That creates the asymptote. X equals 3. There is no whole then. And the horizontals, Bob tells you about those. Is this a bob, a bot, or a sob? It's a bob, bigger on bottom. And bob is not 0 automatically. It's y equals 0 plus whatever's on the outside, because this moved up 2 because of that. So it's y equals 2. It's better to not think of bob as a 0. Bob is an outsider. It's whatever's outside the fraction. All right. Raise your hand if you had all 4 of those parts right. Okay, good. And there's the graphing part too, of course. But anyway, are there any other things you want to know about this kind of problem? Because this is the base, this is the main kind you have to know for Friday. The test is coming on Friday. All right. Here's another one. How would I start? Factor it, and then it's pretty boring, so I'm not going to keep doing that one. Look at this one. How would I start? Factoring it. And that one's also pretty boring. This one, it's pretty boring again. And this one was kind of interesting. So everybody try number 6. It just looks complicated, but all it happens is a bunch of stuff cancels, and it creates lots of interesting things on the graph. Okay, so try graphing this one once everything's cancels. Answer the 4 questions about it. Domain, vertical asymptotes. Ask Bob if it's a bob, a bot, or a sob, to answer the horizontal asymptote question. And then remember that the holes, you have to give both parts of the hole. The holes are always something, comma, something. Okay, I'm back. By now, you should have factored the top, and you would have had an x plus 4 and an x minus 3. And look at that. Two things cancel off. There's nothing left on the top. So what's on the top then? A 1. Okay, you gotta stop chatting when I'm teaching. That means you with your red iPad case. All right. There's a 1 on top. 1 over x minus 2. So it's basically the parent graph except move 2 to the right. So I know what that looks like. Here's the parent graph. Now I'm going to grab it and move 2 spots to the right. Boop, boop. Yeah. Oops. Undo that. Move. Grab this. Go 2 spots to the right. There we go. And now I can make my asymptotes in there. Asymptote there. Asymptote there. And there's my graph. Is there any holes, though? Yes, there is. Where are the holes in this guy? They are at, this one right here was at -4. So I go to -4 and I put an empty spot right there and I continue with my graph. So now it's got a hole there. Another spot right there, 3. There's a hole at 3. So I go to +3, I put an empty spot right there. So the goal here is to make your graph and make it appear like there is nothing happening right here or here on the graph. That is totally different than the asymptotes, which are those dotted blue lines. All right, then you say domain is all reals except x cannot be 3 things. X cannot be 2, x cannot be -4, and x cannot be 3. And then the asymptotes, these things are either asymptotes or holes right here, and 2 of them are holes, and that one's the asymptote. So I go x equals 2 as an asymptote. And the horizontals are that's just told by the bigger on bottom, bigger on top, or same on both thing. And the horizontal, this is a bigger on the bottom, if you can see that. So if it's a bob, then that's a y equals 0. And if you look at the dotted line on the graph, it's at 0. The other dotted line that goes up and down, that's at 2, so it all is working out. And the last thing is the hole. There's 2 of them. There's one at -4, and there's another one at 3. How do you figure out those other numbers then? Put it in. You put in -4 right here. This is the resulting function, the thing you got after everything canceled. So 1 over -6, and the other one, you put in a 3 here. If you put in a 3 right here, it's 1 over 3 minus 2, which is 1 over 1, which is 1. So it's -4, -1/6, and 3, 1. Any questions about that one? How many of you would have had it right on the test? Okay, good. Then I think we have time for your homework. I'm not giving you a homework quiz today. I am going to give you one tomorrow on the Schoology quiz, but not today. So for today, your homework is worksheet C right here. You'll find it says today's due date, or sorry, today's assigned date of March 12th. So look for the one assigned March 12th called worksheet C. It's not that long, and you've got a lot of time to work, so I'm assigning all of it. And that's all I have for the video for today. And that was a pretty short video.